essentially what I do is I help a lot of customers with their innovation. I'm based out of Dallas in US in Texas. So I wanted to share some of my experience around how we are leveraging innovation, how we are helping customers to build innovation, right? Uh, what is innovation? Essentially, you can look at it from two perspectives, right? You can look at it from a startup standpoint as taking an idea, and then you might convert it to a service or a product which a customer will pay money for, right? But when you come to an enterprise which is growing very fast, or an enterprise which is established, innovation for them is how do they look within their organization to be able to figure out, can they optimize their process, and how can they become much more they can optimize their process and be able to save money, right? And other than that, one more way is how do you get much more closer with your customer, and you're able to understand how can you drive more value to them, right? So essentially driving more revenue opportunities for yourself, and then be able to drive more customer value, right? Or customer loyalty and customer satisfaction. So this is in my definition of innovation when we work with larger enterprises, right? Essentially, how do you build innovative culture internally, right? There's no hook or crook. There's no workaround to it. The best way to do it is build an innovation team internally to your organization. You need to clearly define what is the strategy and goals of the company, and then build a well-rounded team internally, which is focused purely on innovation, where they look at what ideas can help you optimize what you do internally, and also look at different ways you can engage with your customer, and then see how can you drive value to them, right? So let me give you a couple of ideas around, what strategies you can do to be able to build, innovation team internally, right? So that's where we work predominantly with a lot of mid-cap companies in the US, and then we engage with them, for innovation, right? So how do you build a culture of innovation? Because large enterprises essentially have a lot of budgets, right? But unfortunately, they don't innovate. They end up going and buying startups, and then they try to digest their information. Sometimes they're able to take it and then absorb them inside and be able to execute, but most of the time they fail, right? So the couple of ways how you can build a team is, every time it has to be a well-rounded team, right? So you need, there are different companies look at it in different ways. So you can take a look at Target, one of the large retailers, right? They always look at, when they want to build an innovation team, they will look at two kinds of, people to hire. One is people internal to their organization who know the company culture really well. And then they always tend to go outside and then hire different kind of people who are more entrepreneurial, and who've been there and done a lot of innovation before, right? So that is one way to build a team, right? And the second way of, strategy around how to build innovation is you need to have a good mix of people. You need to have business savvy people in your team. At the same time, you should also have, really technically savvy people. And those people, that team should essentially be spending a lot of time with your business units. They should be having conversation, listening to feedback, right? You talk constantly with your sales team, with your marketing organization, or the team which is building the products. If you're having the conversation, that feedback will help the innovation team to be able to really drive value to your end customers, right? That's one of the strategy which we have seen work, because a lot of the time they pick up information, but the information does not get filtered, and nobody takes action on that internally, right? So that's one thing. And then the third thing is you will have truly student of the business, right? A lot of your employees don't go by titles, right? They are essentially, very close with your customer, and they know what they are doing, right? So you need to be able to take those kind of people who look at problems, what is there internal to an organization, and be able to execute on that, right? That's another kind of person who's going to be a real asset for you when you're building an innovation team. So these are few ways how you can build an innovation team, which is going to be very, very integral compared to any of your competitors, right? I'll give you a few examples where, I keep talking about technology because all we do is we take innovation, we help customers solve their problem using innovation and then emerging technologies. Few examples is we recently helped one customer, I mean, the state of North Carolina. So in North Carolina as a state, right, they have a lot of opiate problem. When you say opiate problem, they will, I mean, there are a lot of people which essentially are writing prescription. Doctors are writing prescription for pain meds, right? And it's become an epidemic, right? It's, I mean, they're not writing it for the right reasons, and a lot of people are dying. Right? So when we sat down with the CIO, right, of state of North Carolina, essentially what they're not able to collate all the information. So we sketched out a solution for it. We said, hey, why don't we bring a technology like blockchain, right? And then be able to take all the citizen data across driving license, across, I mean, here, I mean, there are different IDs like PAN and Aadhaar, right? How do you bring from different systems which are siloed, where they don't have real insight into the persona, bring them together, right? Then anytime a person is writing a prescription, it can be a doctor who's writing a prescription, or, I mean, so you can use AI, right? You can use machine learning to be able to find anomaly. If a certain doctor is writing bad prescriptions and then he's creating an epidemic, you can easily find a pattern, right? But when the system is not together and it is very siloed, it's very difficult to find the pattern, right? So, and we also brought in IoT, right, where we brought a retina scanning company, where in every time somebody is going for meds, right? So we're doing a big pilot where using retina scan, they can easily understand, I mean, truly who is the one who's going in for the prescription, right? Because there's a lot of fraud which happens there too. So connecting all the people together using blockchain, bringing a centralized data where it is no longer siloed between different systems. That's one thing. Second thing is taking the data, bringing all the different personas into your data platform, right? Where you are able to see patterns and you are able to see anomalies, right? It can be predictive. It can be, I mean, it can project what kind of, I mean, pattern is happening internally. And if you can even automate using AI to a level where you see an anomaly, you can automatically send, notice to the physician that, hey, there is a, felony which is happening, right? We see a pattern where you're writing a lot of pain meds. And if you continue to do that, you're going to lose your license. So using this as a use case, right? They were blown away because they didn't have a way to consolidate all the information. So this is one way of using technology to be able to, innovate internally to your process and be able to solve a problem. Second thing is we work with a large durable medical supply company. It is a fancy way of, they sell bandages in US, right? They make like $500 million in revenue. When we went into their organization, they had a very mundane and very slow process. And every time a prescription comes inside the organization, it takes a long time, like 20 people touch that data. So it takes a lot of time for them to process the information. And then once, they have a revenue cycle management, right? So in US, every time a prescription is written, or if somebody walks into a doctor's office, a prescription is written. And then at the end of them, at their treatment plan, right, they go and they send it to a health institution to be essentially able to process it. Sometimes it gets rejected, right? So the whole cycle creates a revenue cycle for them. And if they are not able to do that right, they lose a lot of money and hospitals essentially shut down, right? So what we did is when we went in there, we looked at their entire process, right? How do you, optimize the process? So we brought in robotic process automation. We looked at to see, hey, how can we take a repetitive process where 20 people are touching the same, prescription information and automate it so we were able to automate 55% of the process, right? So I'm giving different examples and savings methodology because, we have a lot of entrepreneurs here who have successful businesses, right? How do you innovate internally? How do you take your process to see how can you inject emerging technologies? So robotic process automation was one thing where we helped optimize their process. The second thing we did was whenever this entire process happens, from the time a prescription comes in, somebody serves it, they ship a bandage. So this is a repetitive process for them, right? So we need, at the end of the time, most of the time, this is paid by government, right? They call it Medicare. Medicare pays most of these bills. A lot of fraud happens. So Medicare constantly comes and audits, and the audit is a huge complex process. So we said, we'll bring blockchain. We will inject blockchain into your entire system because the moment you inject blockchain, you cannot manipulate data, right? You cannot, falsify information. That's one of the inherent abilities of blockchain, right? So we brought that and integrated into their entire system, where whenever any transaction happens, every time a process is happening for them to send the information. So if Medicare comes and says, hey, I want to look at all your transactions, they don't have to go through tons of paperwork and take weeks or months to be able to produce the documents. They can open up their system and say, here are all my transactions of that we did, right? So you can easily look at it, and it is untainted data. You should be able to easily make any questions, just go, I'm opening my system. The third thing was revenue cycle management, right? Using machine learning and AI, essentially we can project and predict how many times they are claiming, they're sending for a claim process. What is the probability that the claim will get rejected, right? So in any of your, systems today with any of the entrepreneurs, the big thing is, data, right? If you have the right data and any systems that you're planning to build, if you're building it focused on AI, right? The new guys who are trying to do it, there's tons of opportunities for startups and entrepreneurs here to be able to think, hey, what is the traditional system of business here? How do we take the data and help them become much more optimal, right? So AI is the, key technology right now, which is driving US, right? There's most of the opportunities there, or most of the jobs is created using. So I'd love to bring it to your attention that in India, you have a lot of opportunities with all the legacy businesses that you can build a solution which will help them predict their revenue cycle management. You can predict if there's any fraud happening and how to optimize the cost in any of the solutions they do. So that was the second example, right? And the third one was, we work with a large hospital system, right? Again, leveraging emerging technologies and helping them with innovation. We partnered with their innovation arm. What we essentially did was, in large hospitals, everything, all the data is digitized, right? But unfortunately, the whole market is the electronic health record market is managed by only a few large companies like Cerner and Epic, right? So these guys don't allow people to share data. So today we are able to work with a bunch of hospitals to be able to connect all their data across different hospitals for better decision management. Today, so we work with Children's Hospital of Orange County, which is in Los Angeles. What they've always wanted to do is, if a patient comes in and a child has a certain case of cancer and at a certain stage, right? Today, their data is siloed to their hospital, and all their treatment plans is pretty much siloed to what they can do. With what we are trying to do is, we brought in blockchain. We created all the smart contracts and all that technology in place to be able to seamlessly integrate across different hospitals. So the hospital can build different levels of firewall and then say, hey, this is the information I want to share with another hospital. This is the information internally my employees can touch, because there's a lot of complaints around patient privacy in the US, right? So that's one big innovation that we are closely working with the hospital group to bring to market, right? And another interesting point is, we brought in AI. So when you look at all these data which is siloed, when you bring into, we essentially call it a micro data lake, because in blockchain, it's not a database. You don't use that for dumping information, but you use it to track micro assets. So when you have this micro asset or specific patient information or their symptom information, you will be able to run, AI and analytics, or specifically machine learning models on top of it to find anomaly, right? What kind of, so when you can build the best decision management system by connecting all the hospitals. So that is another, innovation we are trying to do. So essentially building an innovation team is always going to be difficult, right? But if you put that time and energy into building something like this, it's going to give you a competitive edge. And then when you are strategically aligning your company's goals and, with the innovation organization, it's going to be a big win for you. Thank you so much.